I was going to say that SEO with Fat Joe is as peaceful as this, but then the birds are all having fights.
Did you know that Google personalizes many searches by city and Also Ask is the only tool to access live People Also Ask data at city level? Try for free at alsoasked.com.
Tired of SEO guesswork? Quadra's AI agent goes deeper to uncover high-impact optimizations and completes hours of SEO in minutes. Get started now.
Whoa. Okay, so as you just heard, my name is Liam. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a digital accessibility specialist. I'm here today to answer two questions. One, what the fuck is alt text, honestly? And two, how do you go about writing it? So I'm going to jump in with the first one. What the fuck is alt text? Now, chances are before today, you might not have heard of it. That's absolutely fine. You may have heard of it as a piece of metadata, as an accessibility feature. But I'm going to get everyone on the same page right away by asking you to do one thing. I want everyone to close your eyes just for a minute, and I'd like you to do that now. On the display is an image. You can't see the image, so I'm going to attempt to describe it to you. 4 white men stroll confidently across a zebra crossing in a leafy suburb of North London. They have shaggy beards, 60s hipster suits. One of the men isn't wearing any shoes. Okay, you can open your eyes. Hopefully I was successful of describing this image in your head there, the cover of Abbey Road. What I just did there was alt text. I described an image in terms that you can understand to account for the impairment I gave you. Alt text is simply alternative text, a text alternative. Its job is a contingency measure for if users can't see your image. Most people would come across alt text when an image doesn't load due to a server issue, or if they are visually impaired and they have visual impairment all the time. Now, chances are, if you heard of alt text before today, and if you were paying attention to Clive's talk, you would know that alt text is an accessibility feature. And my challenge to you today is to reframe how you think about accessibility so you know how important that is. I've worked in digital services for over a decade in a variety of different roles. Paid, search, content design, service design. I've done public sector, private sector. If there is one universal truth I've learnt during that time, accessible content benefits everyone. It benefits every website and it benefits every user. You may have heard variations of this statistic before. In the UK, 24% of the population has a registered disability. That's 1 in 4 people with some kind of impairment that impacts the way they interact with the world and impacts the way they interact with digital media. 1 in 4 is a big chunk of the population. But like I say, I'm here to reframe it for you. That statistic typically relates to people with long-term permanent disabilities, the type of things that don't go away and permanently impact the way people interact with the world. Total vision loss, total deafness, losing a limb. But that's not all the people that benefit from accessibility. Because at various points in our life, we will have temporary impairments, recovering from cataract surgery, temporary deafness, breaking your wrist. These people also have the same access needs as those 1 in 4. And situational impairment is something that I bet everyone can relate to. Trying to apply for something in one hand whilst you're holding a child in the other. Being on a busy tube and your images aren't loading because of low data connection. Or being on a loud environment and you can't hear the audio from your videos. Everyone has access needs. They might not know they're going to have access needs, and they might not have the experience on how to mitigate them. But when you think of impairment in this way, as something that moves in and out of our lives, you quickly realize that the 1 in 4% of people that benefit from accessible content is everyone. Everyone has access needs, which is why accessible content benefits everyone. So Liam, be specific. What benefits does alt text really offer? It's a valid question, and I'm not going to duck it, but I am just going to flip it slightly. I'm going to ask you, What benefit do images offer? Why do you put images on your website? Why put them on your newsletters? Why post them on social media? Whatever the answer is you have in your head right now, the benefit for alt text is exactly the same, because alt text is there to do the same job as images. It is a contingency feature. Now, if you work for this popular unknown florist, don't be called out. I spend a lot of money with you. This is a product image that I just pulled offline. As a sighted person, I have the privilege of being able to engage with this product in a really meaningful way in mere milliseconds when this image loads. The beautiful bouquet color evokes springtime to me. It makes me feel happy about the brighter days ahead. I get practical information such as the volume of stems I might expect. There's even text in the image. It's telling me where the tulips are coming from, if that was a particular concern for me. All of this helps me make a decision if this is the product for me, if it's worth my money, and if the person I'm buying for is going to enjoy it. Alt text job is to do exactly the same. Unfortunately, the alt text for this image does not. It says the brand name of the product, which is probably good when organizing files, but not good for someone who wants to get something out of it. Another example, this time a promotional image from Sky Sports. If you're in from Sky Sports, do feel called out. I spend too much money with you. Now, as a sports fan, this image is really appealing to me if I'm making a decision whether or not to engage with this brand, subscribe to their services. It does so much of the heavy lifting of what this brand is about. If you look at Emma Raducanu, you see the emotion of live sport. If you look at the other images, you see not only the type of sports that you're going to get on this package, but the quality. You're not just going to get to watch motor racing. You're going to get to watch the greatest racer who ever lived, Sir Lewis Hamilton. This image is fantastic for telling me what that brand is about. But if the image didn't load, unfortunately I don't get that, because the writer didn't know what alt text was used for. Now, I care about alt text. I volunteered against my better judgment to stand on a stage and talk to you about it for 20 minutes. And hopefully in about 13 and a half minutes, you guys will care about alt text. But I tell you one person that does not need any convincing, and that is Google. Google cares about alt text. Their technical guidance is very specific. Alt text is the most important attribute when it comes to providing metadata for an image. In other words, how Google learns what your image is, who might benefit from it, and therefore who to present it to. It learns from alt text. So if image search is any part of your content strategy, alt text needs to be too. So that's what alt text is. It's a written description of an image. It's a contingency for when people can't see that image, and it's the single most important thing Google uses to understand what that image is. Okay, question 2. How to write alt text. There is one thing you need. It's not going to cost you a penny. I'm not going to send you to my website and sign up to my mailing list. You're not going to have to go to any training days whatsoever. The one thing you need to write good alt text is empathy. You need to have an understanding of how people interact with alt text and what they need to get from it. Now, I spoke a moment ago about impairments and how accessible content benefits everyone, especially those with situational and temporary impairments. But visually impaired people and the visually impaired community at large require alt text in order to engage with your brand, make decisions on what they're going to do with your brand, potentially buy your products. An assistive technology called screen readers is primarily how visually impaired people interact with the internet. And these will literally translate the HTML of your website into a format that they can engage with, whether that's narration on things like Apple's VoiceOver or dynamic braille readers, which are really cool if you've never seen them. They will literally translate what a heading is, the difference between an ordered list and unordered list, where a link goes, and it will say what an image is. And the way it knows what an image is your alt text. Primarily, good alt text is a friend to those readers. It respects their time, it helps them understand what the image is and what to get from it. And it does that by giving them details. It gives them the details that they would care about. Now, you know your audience is better than anyone. You should know what details they care about. But to help you make those decisions, I'm going to present my 2-step plan to writing good, useful alt text with examples. Step 1, we break down the content of an image from its context. And what do I mean by those terms? I'll explain. The content of an image is simply what we can see, what the pixels are doing. What's in the frame? Is it a landscape? Are there human subjects? Are actions being performed? What's the color palette like? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? It's devoid of what we know. It's just what we see. Context is the opposite. Context is what we know. It's what's being inferred or suggested. Does that image trigger a feeling in us? Does it inspire joy or rage? What are we trying to get from that image? Is there subjective artistic merit to it? Good alt text is a balance of these two things. It picks out details that the user can see that support what we want them to know or what we'd like them to feel. There's an image on the display. If you're in the room and you're sighted, your brain would have just made 100 different judgments about this image based on your lived experience. You may know who the subject is. You may know the relationship between the subject and the car. But remember, empathy. You're writing for people that didn't have the privilege of being able to make those snap judgments. We need to call that out. So, we go back to content. What we see is a white, masculine-presenting human being in reasonably good shape. They're leaning on a car, they're holding a gun. It's a professional shot. These are the things we see. We're not trying to project onto it. But we don't write alt text based on what we can see, because we'll do a fantastic job of describing what the pixels are doing, but not what it actually means. And it causes an imbalance in the alt text. It makes it unhelpful. So now we think about what we know. We know that the subject is Daniel Craig, a famous British actor known for playing James Bond 007, who is an international assassin. That explains the gun. Depending on our knowledge of the subject and our relationship to this image, we may know finer details. Who makes the car? What type of gun is it? What suit is being worn? We may even know, if we've commissioned it, why the photograph was taken. These are the things that we know about the image. But we don't write alt text based on that, because then we could write a fantastic essay on 007 without actually saying what the image is. So, we look for those links. And typically this is how I do it. I just jot down a few things I can see in the image, I jot down the assumptions or the knowledge I have about the image, and I look for those things that support each other. And then I move to the step 2, curating that towards the goal of the content. Now, I have used the word curate there very specifically. It's important to understand alt text is subjective. You will have to make decisions about what to include and what to exclude to the benefit of your audience. Because alt text is not transcription, it is translation. It's not saying exactly what an image is. It's taking something from one language, visual media, and translating it into another language, the written word. And to do so successfully needs to understand what's going to translate over and what's going to be understood by your audience. And the second thing I just want to call out about this step is we're talking about the goal of the content, not the goal of the image. And that is because good alt text is not written in a vacuum. It has an awareness of the content that surrounds it. It doesn't repeat what's already on the page. It respects the user's time and supports whatever the image was there to support. So, give you an example. If I was writing alt text for this image and I know my audience is interested in men's fashion, or my strategic goal is to make that suit look like something to purchase, the details I'm going to subjectively pick out for my audience will back up those details. They don't need to know about the gun. They probably don't need to know about the car. They want to know about that suit. Who's wearing it? Is that important? I judge it is. And I'm using subjective language. It's being worn well, frankly. So I want my alt text to back that up. And in a sentence or two, I've just made that point and replicated what a sighted person might have drawn from that image based on the knowledge of my audience. Now, if I was writing for a completely different audience, perhaps one that was interested in cars, the details I would pick out would reflect that too. I might go in heavy on the car details, the technical specifications, because I know that my audience would get a kick from it. And if I'm doing the job of trying to make my brand look like it's part of the James Bond franchise and carry that luxury of that brand awareness, I'm going to mention too why that photograph was taken, to mention that brand partnership, because that's what I would want people to get out of that image. That's what I want people to get out of that alt text. Defining the goal of the content that surrounds the image is really important, because your goal guides you to important details. Now, I imagine that the majority of people will be wanting to write alt text on product images, so I'm just going to talk about those for a moment. What are your product images doing? Are they showing how durable a product is? What materials is being used? How aesthetically pleasing it is? How likely it is to get knocked off a photo frame by cats? What are people getting out of your images that's helping them make purchase decisions? Because that's the goal, and that's the goal you need to replicate. Now, I'd love to go through loads of different images, but I'm on a time schedule. So when defining the goal, ask yourself, why this image? Of all the things in my media library, of all the things I could have commissioned or generated, why did I select this image? How does it back up my content? How does it support my objectives? That will help you define your goal. And the second question to ask yourself is, how would this image benefit sighted people? Remember when the flowers came up on the display and I highlighted those little judgments that I was able to make to engage with that content? Really investigate why you're using images and what you want your users to get out of them. That will guide you to the details you want to pick out on alt text. And that, guys, is how to write alt text. You approach it with empathy, an understanding of who you're writing it for and what they need to get out of it. You break down the content of an image and the context, those things that you can see that support the things you want your users to know or want your users to feel. Then pick out the details that support your goal. But most importantly, be a friend to the users. Help them understand what they would have seen if the image had loaded, and help them understand what they were missing out on. And by doing so, you will be a friend to Google, because Google wants those good, useful, succinct descriptions of images so they know who to put your images in front of. Now, a quick clarification. If images don't have a goal, how do you then approach alt text? Because some images don't. Some images are just there for aesthetic value. Add a little bit of color to an otherwise drab page or to section off content. In that instance, you don't need to worry about alt text. You simply need to mark the image as decorative. Now, different platforms and different content management solutions will do this in different ways, usually a tick box to say, this image is decorative. So check your product guidance. But on a code level, you simply want to include the alt attribute, but not populate it. That sends a clear signal to assistive technologies that you have made the active decision, there's nothing to be read aloud here. If you don't do that, then screen readers and browsers, trying to be a friend to their users, will grab something, anything to read out. And typically they take the file path. And if your images are organized anything like mine, that's not going to be any use to anyone. Now, a question you may have, because AI is the big thing to talk about at the moment. Can AI write alt text for you? Kinda, but it doesn't do it very well. There are a lot of tools on the market, and I've tested quite a few of them. And what I've found is they go in heavy on content. They're great at explaining what an image is, but not necessarily what it means. So here's something that I pulled from Google. Apologies about the person in this image. This is one of the most significant images of the 21st century. And the details that are going to be important to the user when they look at it are not the suit that's being worn, the facial expression. It's who this human being is, the position they hold in our society, and why this image was taken. Generative AI is great, but it doesn't know that, or it doesn't know it instinctively. You may tell me my prompts are shit, valid. But I would always remind you of empathy. You're writing for human beings, and there is no one more empathetic than a human being there is no generative tech more empathetic than a human being, to my knowledge. So don't take humans out of the alt text writing equation. Always have authorship. Now, I would love to spend another 20 minutes talking to you about alt text. I'd love to give you more examples, such as complex data in charts, bar graphs, and the relative benefits of describing people in terms of their gender identity or their ethnicity. There's a whole field of study on that. But I don't have time to do that. So if you want to know more, come say hi to me on LinkedIn. As I walked out on stage, it automatically published a blog post I wrote last night in a pub. I hope it holds up. On that blog post is a few bonus practical tips just to build some confidence and a few really great further reads. If you only read one, How Dungeons and Dragons Taught Me to Write Alt Text. That is a doozy. I fully recommend that. And whilst you're there, if you've got any questions or you just want to chat about accessibility and inclusion, feel free to. I genuinely love talking about inclusion. I genuinely love talking about accessible design because I truly do believe that accessible content benefits everyone. Thank you.